Hello, welcome back to my channel, Ask MCT Chris. In this session, I'm going to show you how you can use Power Pivot and DAX in Excel to create a fully flexible chart for your interactive dashboard. Stay tuned, and before we start, let's look at my intro. So I have here an Excel spreadsheet open, and this is just a listing of the sales from Contoso. What we wanted is to have a pivot table and a pivot chart and also a slicer. So how do we go about that? First thing is we're going to convert this listing into a table by going into the Home, Format as Table, and choose a formatting. And then hit the OK in the Create Table dialog box. Once this has been converted to a table, name your table. So I'm going to name this as Sales. And once this has been converted, we can now go into our Power Pivot and then add this to our data model. So once that is added, it is named Sales. We can now create a pivot table by clicking on the pivot table and choose pivot table, and we will just create a new worksheet and we will hit the OK button and the pivot table is created. And I can now create some measures in here. Let's say I wanted to count the number of products that were sold, so I can right click the table, add a measure, and then I will name this as count of products, and then I will use count, and I will count, of course, the product name, and then close bracket, check the DAX formula, and we've got now our count of products, and I can place that now in my pivot table. And let's say I wanted to see it by company, then I will have there by company, and also I wanted to see also the quantity, so I can tick the quantity and I will have there the sum of quantity that were sold by product. Now let's add a chart. So to create a chart, go back to your Power Pivot window and then drop down the pivot table and choose the pivot chart. I'm just going to place that in the existing worksheet, and this is now my pivot chart. And then from here, I can go and click on, let's say I wanted to see also the count of products by company, and you will see that I have now my chart in there. I wanted to add a slicer. So all you need to do is click away from any of the pivot table and chart, and then go into the Insert and choose the slicer. And I'm just going to choose the data model, and then I can now choose in here which field I'm going to place into my slicer. So let's say I wanted to look at the product name to be in my slicer, and this is now the product name. And I can choose which product I wanted. And if you notice, the table and the chart is not yet being filtered. We need to create a connection from the slicer to my pivot table and chart, right clicking this, going to the report connections, and then choose the chart and the pivot table, and that will now be filtered properly. So if I will multi-select, then I will now have that. So that is a very simple creation of a dashboard using the Power Pivot, and we have created here a simple DAX formula of counting the products. Now, what if the requirement is we want the count of the products and the sum of the quantity to be in the slicer rather than the products to be in the slicer? That would be in another video. So stay tuned for that. So what we have seen in there is to create a simple dashboard using our power pivot, creating a simple DAX formula of the count of products, placing it in our pivot table and also in a pivot chart, and adding a slicer, and we connected that to our pivot table and pivot chart for it to be filtered. I hope you've learned something from this session. If you like it, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe, and to get more tips and tricks from me. Thank you for watching.